In English, a table is just a table. In German, a table is masculine. Not kidding. Der Tisch. A spoon? Also masculine. Der Löffel. A fork? Feminine. Die Gabel. And water? Somehow, neither. It is neuter. Das Wasser. Yes, in German, even objects have grammatical gender. Confused? Good. You're in the right place. Let's break it down. What's with der, die, and das? And how can you actually remember them without crying into your das Kissen every night? But before we go any further, what exactly is a noun? A noun is just a naming word for a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. In English, dog, house, love, Berlin, all are nouns. In German, same idea. Der Hund, das Haus, die Liebe, Berlin. If you can point to it, name it, or think about it, it's probably a noun.
Quick side note. When we say gender in grammar, we're not talking about biology. Sex is about biology, male, female, etc. Grammatical gender is just a language rule. It's about how we group nouns in German.
So don't worry, your table isn't actually a man. Though he does look proud with that mustache, doesn't he? In German, gender is just a category that affects the article, adjective, and sentence structure. It has nothing to do with the object's real-life identity. So how is German different from English when it comes to nouns? In English, nouns don't have gender. A book is just a book. A car is just a car. Easy. We say the book, the car, the table. Same the for everything. But in German, the word the changes. Depending on the gender of the noun, we say der for masculine nouns, die for feminine nouns, and das for neuter nouns. So, der Tisch, the table, die Lampe, the lamp, das Buch, the book. That's what makes German a bit tricky at first, but also kind of fun. But wait, doesn't English also have gender? Yes, a little bit. We say man for a male person, woman for a female. We used to say waiter and waitress, actor and actress, though now we mostly use gender-neutral words. That's called natural gender, based on real-life sex or identity. It only applies to people and animals. But in German, every single noun has a gender. Even things, even ideas, even stuff that clearly isn't male or female. And sometimes it may not relate to the sex of the person or thing it is referring to. For example, das Mädchen, which means a girl. But the word is neuter, not feminine. Why is the word for a girl in German neuter? We will cover that shortly in our video. So English nouns have gender if it makes sense. German nouns have gender even if it doesn't, and you have to learn the gender with the noun, because it affects everything, the article, the adjective, even how your sentence is built. So how do we show the correct gender of a noun in German? With these three little words. Der for masculine nouns, die for feminine nouns, das for neuter nouns. These are called definite articles, like the English word the. But unlike English, German has 3 different versions depending on the noun's gender. We'll learn more about definite articles and how they change in a separate video, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Before we go on, here's something really important. In German, all nouns are always capitalized. That means man, table, school, dog. If it's a noun, it gets a capital letter, no matter where it is in the sentence. This is very different from English, where we usually only capitalize the first word of a sentence and proper nouns like John, Germany, or Google. But in German, even ordinary words like book or bread are written with a capital letter, no matter where they come in the sentence. Example: Ich lese ein Buch. I'm reading a book. Das Brot ist frisch. The bread is fresh. Coming back to gender of the German nouns, now you're probably thinking, how on earth am I supposed to remember the gender of every noun? Well, the good news is, there are some useful rules and patterns that can help. We'll look at those shortly in this video. But here's the golden rule you should follow from day one. Always learn the noun with its article. Don't learn just Buch, say das Buch. Not just Lampe, say die Lampe. It may feel annoying at first, but trust me, your future self will thank you when the grammar starts getting real. Now, let's look at some important rules to help you remember the gender of German nouns. To make things easier, we'll learn the gender rules in two parts. First, we'll look at some categories, groups of nouns that usually follow the same gender. Then, we'll move on to word endings, which can also give you great clues about gender. We'll start with categories, groups of nouns that usually have the same gender. First up, masculine nouns. Rule 1. Nouns that refer to male people or male animals are masculine. Pretty logical, right? Here are some examples. Der Mann, the man. Der Vater, the father. Der Bruder, the brother. Der Lehrer, the male teacher. Der Kater, the tomcat. Rule 2. Some categories of time and direction are always masculine in German. That includes days of the week like der Montag, Monday, der Freitag, Friday. All 7 days of the week are masculine. Seasons. Der Sommer, der Winter, der Frühling, der Herbst. But there's one little twist. German has 2 words for spring. Der Frühling, masculine. Das Frühjahr, neuter. Both mean spring, and both are correct. So yes, this is one of those just German things. Months like der Januar or der Oktober. All the 12 months are masculine. Points of the compass like der Norden or der Westen. All 4 main directions and even combinations like northeast or southwest are always masculine in German. Rule 3. Car brands in German are masculine. Yes, BMW, Audi, Mercedes all use der. So you say der BMW, der Audi, der Mercedes. Even if the actual word for car is neuter, das Auto, the brand names themselves are masculine. Let's now look at feminine nouns. Rule 1. Nouns that refer to female people or animals are usually feminine. Examples: die Frau, the woman. Die Mutter, the mother. Die Tochter, the daughter. Die Löwen, the lioness. Sounds simple, right? But wait, here comes one of German's most famous exceptions. Das Mädchen, the girl. Yes, it means girl, but it's neuter. Why? We will understand it when we go through the ending rules for neuter nouns. Let's move on to the next rule for now. Rule 2. When you use numbers as nouns, they're feminine in German. Yes, the numbers themselves become nouns and take die. Examples: die Eins, the 1. Die 2, the 2. Die 7, the 7. You'll often hear this in everyday German. Die 3 hat gewonnen. Number 3 won. Ich habe eine Eins bekommen. I got a 1, as in a grade. So when a number becomes a thing, it's feminine. Rule 3. In German, the names of ships, planes, and motorbikes are usually treated as feminine. Examples: Die Titanic, the Titanic. Die Boeing 747, the Boeing 747. Die Harley Davidson, the Harley. Just think of them as classy ladies on an adventure. Let's now look at neuter nouns. Rule 1. Words for young humans and animals are neuter in German. Yes, even if the person or animal is clearly male or female, German grammar says if it's young, it's das. Examples: das Kind, the child. Das Baby, the baby. Das Kätzchen, the kitten. Das Fohlen, the foal. Das Lamm, the lamb. Rule 2. Here's the next rule. In German, when you take a verb and turn it into a noun, it's always neuter. This happens a lot when you're talking about the activity itself. Let's take an example. Take the verb essen, which means to eat. If you turn it into a noun, it becomes das Essen, which means the eating, or just the food. Here are a few more examples. The verb trinken, which means to drink, turns into das Trinken, the drinking. The verb schlafen, which means to sleep, turns into the noun das Schlafen, the sleeping. The verb schwimmen, which means to swim, turns into the noun das Schwimmen, the swimming. Rule 3. Fractions are always neuter in German. Examples: das Drittel, 1/3, das Viertel, 1/4, das Achtel, 1/8, das Hundertstel, 1/100th. So, if you're talking about part of something, it's neuter. All right, we've covered the most important categories. Now, let's move on to the next powerful tool, the endings of words, which often tell you the gender of the noun, even if the meaning doesn't. But here's the deal. We won't cover every possible ending. That gets too complicated, and honestly, not very useful for beginners. Instead, we'll focus only on the most common and helpful endings that you'll actually see and use often. And, as before, we'll start with masculine nouns. Let's start with one of the easiest and most reliable endings for masculine nouns. Ling. Always masculine. If a noun ends in ling, it's der. No exceptions. Examples: der Lehrling, the apprentice. Der Schmetterling, the butterfly. Der Zwilling, the twin. So whenever you see ling at the end of a word, you can confidently say der. No guessing needed. Next up, the ending ig, also pronounced as ich, depending on what part of Germany you are in. It's almost always masculine. This one's super common and useful. Examples: der König, or der König, the king. Der Honig, or der Honig, the honey. Der Essig, or der Essig, the vinegar. So remember, ig is a strong hint for der, and you'll see it often in everyday German. Now let's look at the ending ich. Just like ig, this one is also almost always masculine. Examples: der Teppich, the carpet. Der Pfirsich, the peach. Just be careful not to confuse it with adjectives like glücklich, happy, or traurig, sad. Those are not nouns. If it's a noun and ends in ich, it's almost always der. Next masculine ending, or. If a noun ends in or, it's usually masculine. These words often come from Latin or are used in technical or academic language. Examples: der Motor, the motor. Der Doktor, the doctor. Der Faktor, the factor. Der Sensor, the sensor. Now let's talk about one of the most common endings in German. It's often, but not always, masculine. So here's the deal. When comes from a person, profession, or tool, it's usually masculine. Examples: der Lehrer, the male teacher. Der Fahrer, the male driver. Der Bäcker, the male baker. Der Computer, the computer. Der Drucker, the printer. But be careful, not every word is masculine. For example, die Mutter, the mother, feminine. Das Fenster, the window, neuter. So think of as a strong hint, especially when it refers to a person or machine, but not a guarantee. All right, now that we've seen the most useful endings for masculine nouns, let's move on to feminine endings, the ones that usually take D. And just like before, we'll only focus on the endings that are easy to recognize and actually helpful for remembering the gender. Let's start with a super easy one, the ending height. It's always feminine, no exceptions. Words ending in height are usually abstract nouns, things you can't touch, but you can feel or experience. Examples: die Freiheit, freedom. Die Gesundheit, health. Die Sicherheit, safety. So if you see height at the end, you can be 100% sure it's feminine. Easy rule, always works. Next up, the ending kite. Just like height, this one is also always feminine, no exceptions. These words also express abstract ideas or qualities, things you can describe but not touch. Examples: die Möglichkeit, possibility; die Schwierigkeit, difficulty; die Freundlichkeit, friendliness; die Höflichkeit, politeness. So now you've got a perfect pair, height and kite, always feminine, always safe. Now let's look at one of the most common feminine endings in German. And guess what? It's also always feminine. Words ending in usually come from verbs and describe actions, results, or processes. Examples: die Zeitung, the newspaper, from zeigen, to show; die Prüfung, the exam, from prüfen, to test; die Einladung, the invitation, from einladen, to invite; die Entscheidung, the decision, from entscheiden, to decide. So if you see at the end, no guessing needed. It's always feminine. Easy win. Another strong feminine ending to remember: schafft. Just like height, and kite, this one is also always feminine. Words ending in schafft usually describe groups, relationships, or abstract ideas. Examples: die Freundschaft, friendship; die Mannschaft, team; die Wissenschaft, science; die Gesellschaft, society. Let's add one more to our list of always feminine endings: eon. This ending is used in many words borrowed from Latin, and in German, they're always feminine. These are usually abstract concepts or formal terms. Examples: die Nation, the nation; die Diskussion, the discussion; die Information, the information; die Situation, the situation. Next feminine ending, ei, pronounced as I in German. This one's also simple. It's always feminine. Words ending in ei are often abstract nouns or places related to activity or production. Examples: die Bäckerei, the bakery; die Polizei, the police; die Datei, the file, no exceptions, no confusion. Now let's talk about one of the most common endings in the German language, e. Nouns ending in e are very often feminine, especially when they refer to things or concepts, but not always. So this is a strong pattern, not a strict rule. Examples that follow the pattern: die Blume, the flower; die Lampe, the lamp; die Straße, the street; die Schule, the school; die Frage, the question. But be careful. There are some exceptions like der Junge, the boy; das Ende, the end. Even though e isn't a guaranteed rule, we still included it because it shows up in so many everyday words, and in most cases, it really is feminine. So it's a helpful pattern to know as long as you stay alert for exceptions. So here's the tip. If a noun ends in e and refers to a thing or idea, it's very likely to be feminine. But always check the article to be sure. All right, we've covered the most useful endings for masculine and feminine nouns. Now let's look at the endings that tell us a noun is neuter. Let's start with two endings that are 100% neuter: schen and lein. These are called diminutives. They make a word mean something smaller and sometimes also more affectionate or familiar. And in German, all diminutives are always neuter, no matter what the original word was. Examples: das Mädchen, the girl. Now you know why the word for girl is neuter and not feminine in German. It is neuter because it ends in schen, which is always neuter in German. Das Brötchen, the bread roll, little bread. Das Kätzchen, the kitten. Das Hauschen, the little house. Das Fräulein, the young lady, miss. Next up, the ending ment. This one's also almost always neuter and very common in German, especially for words borrowed from French or Latin. Examples: das Instrument, the instrument; das Dokument, the document; das Argument, the argument; das Experiment, the experiment; das Element, the element. So whenever you see ment at the end of a noun, there's a very high chance it's das. Not quite 100%, but close enough to be a safe bet. Now let's look at the ending This one comes from Latin, and in German it's usually neuter. Examples: das Zentrum, the center; das Museum, the museum; das Studium, the studies; das Gymnasium, the high school; das Publikum, the audience. So usually means das. Not 100% foolproof, but in most cases, it's a safe guess. Here's a bonus tip, not about endings, but beginnings. A lot of German nouns that start with ge are neuter. This isn't a guaranteed rule, but it works very often, especially with abstract or collective nouns. Examples: das Gebäude, the building; das Gemüse, the vegetables; das Gedicht, the poem; das Gespräch, the conversation; das Geschirr, the dishes; das Gebäck, the pastries. So if you see ge at the start of a noun, there's a very good chance it's das, especially if it refers to a collection, process, or abstract thing. Just be careful, not all ge words follow this. For example, die Geschichte, the story or history, feminine. Still, it's a super helpful pattern for everyday words. Bonus tip: how animal genders work in German. Okay, let's clear up one last thing that confuses a lot of learners. Why is dog masculine? What if it's a female dog? Great question, and here's how animal genders work in German. 1. General animal names have a fixed grammatical gender. So when you are talking about an animal in general, for example, the dog, without actually referring to whether it is a male dog or a female dog, you need to remember the gender assigned to that animal. Examples: der Hund, which means the dog, is masculine; die Katze, the cat, feminine; das Pferd, the horse, neuter; die Maus, the mouse. These genders don't change, they're just how the word is in German. 2. To show the animal is male or female, you use a specific word. For example, der Hund, general dog or male dog; die Hündin, female dog; der Kater, male cat; die Katze, female cat, but also the default word for cat; der Löwe, lion, male or general; die Löwin, lioness. 3. Baby animals are usually neuter, just like we saw earlier. Examples: das Kätzchen, the kitten; das Fohlen, the foal; das Kalb, the calf. All right, let's quickly recap. In German, every noun has a gender: masculine, der; feminine, die; or neuter, das. We looked at how to guess the gender using categories like people, seasons, animals, etc., and word endings like shen, kite, and many more. So, what's the one thing you should always do? Learn every noun with its article: der Hund, die Blume, das Haus. Not just Hund, Blume, Haus. Trust me, it'll save you so much pain later when grammar gets serious. If you found this video helpful, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps. And if you want to keep learning German the easy way, don't miss the next video. We'll continue building your basics, one clear step at a time.